He in truth hath throughout eternity been one in his essence, one in his attributes, one in his works. Any and every comparison is applicable only to his creatures, and all conceptions of association are conceptions that belong solely to those that serve him. Any comparison or attribute we attempt to actually attribute to God is itself a fashioning of an idea within our own mind, and that they will invariably fall short of the actual divine reality. There's a quote from Abdu'l-Baha where he says that when we say that God is all-knowing, we're not claiming that the meaning of what we have for the term all-knowing actually is an attribute of God. We're only denying that he is ignorant. Why? Because our limited language cannot reach to the heights of such an exalted being. We're simply trying to say like all-knowing to try and stress as much as we can what that actually might mean. It is as if an animal, no matter how much it attempted to actually describe a human being, itself could only describe a really intelligent dog, because a dog could not possibly understand the heights of knowledge that a human being could have. But what else could such an animal do but to stretch its language to try and express how exalted humans are in comparison to themselves? This concept in theology is called apophatic theology, meaning we are not stating that our praises or our descriptions of God are themselves the true nature of God, but rather we're actually just saying not ignorant, not weak, not powerless, not hateful. So we use our positive things like all-knowing or all-loving or all-powerful simply to deny that there are any imperfections in the Godhead. This idea of apophatic theology, or theology by negation, negating imperfections, we find within Hinduism, we find within Christianity, we find within Islam. Every tradition I know of can, within its own academic, scholarly, and mystical circles, give expression to this idea of the limits of human language and the ultimate height of God, and why this prevents us from actually being able to truly describe them. Every time I attempt to make mention of thee, I am hindered by the sublimity of thy station and the overpowering greatness of thy might. For were I to praise thee throughout the length of thy dominion and the duration of thy sovereignty, I would find that my praise of thee can befit only such as are like unto me, who are themselves thy creatures, and who have been generated through the power of thy decree, and been fashioned through the potency of thy will. And at whatever time my pen ascribeth glory to any one of thy names, methinks I can hear the voice of its lamentation in its remoteness from thee. Baha'u'llah, in Prayers and Meditations, is saying here that the praise that we would praise God with, quote, can befit only such as are like unto me, who are themselves thy creatures. And he gives the example of even the words themselves. When we describe him as the all-loving, the all-knowing, the most glorious, he says the words themselves actually lament, because they are so unequal to the glory or knowledge or beauty of the divine being. Baha'u'llah is telling us that the very essence of God, the unmanifest, known as Háhút, itself is beyond any description, any predicates, any attributes. It's not just that it can't be worshipped in equalness to itself, it is actually beyond the very notion of predication. Should my bodily tongue ever attempt to describe thee as the one whose strength hath ever excelled the strength of the most mighty amongst men, the tongue of my heart would address me, saying, These are but words which can only be adequate to such things as are of the same likeness and nature as themselves. But he of a truth is infinitely exalted above the mention of all his creatures. So no matter how high the minds of people can soar, however deep the most detached and understanding heart can actually penetrate, it cannot transcend the creature of their own conceptions, a product of our own thoughts. The quote then continues, "The meditations of the profoundest thinker, the devotions of the holiest of saints, the highest expressions of praise from either human pen or tongue are but a reflection of that which hath been created within themselves, through the revelation of the Lord their God. Whoever pondereth this truth in his heart will readily admit that there are certain limits which no human being can possibly transgress."